I just want to make sure you were comfortable, doing that and playing at the same time. If it seems like you're relatively used to it.
Yeah, just have it running in the background. I started it now, by the way, and then I just, pretend like it isn't even on and just try my best as normal.
Yeah, man, just have fun.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. And the great thing about Warhammer as well is you've always got, no matter who you're up against as well, you've always got a good chance of victory.
Mm-hmm.
Because on any day you can take down anyone. So just have fun. I wouldn't worry too much about winning or losing or any of that stuff. Just we can start learning, helping you learn the game a little bit better.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll just sort out a build super quick. Why Beastmen, by the way? What made you want to play them the most?
Well, Minotaurs are a really big draw because they just look cool and I like them in other stuff, mythology and other games as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sort of been randomly playing battles against the AI, trying to see what fits with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the Beastmen, seemed kind of like my style.
Yeah.
From what
Is there anything you've been having problems with in particular when it comes to playing on multiplayer at the moment?
Well, mostly the fast pace because I've been playing this game so long. So in campaign, it's very easy to pause and get a good overview. But I had this game where I loaded up and I was like, "What? They're all right in front of me." And it was
okay, yeah. People like to Vanguard and stuff.
Yeah, it was an
Beastmen are really good at that, though.
Yeah,
so.
that as well. But he had like an entire Empire army with what's it called, all these free militia, I think, all these gunners right in front of my face. So I got blasted.
Outriders probably. They can come with rifles or grenade launchers.
Yeah. So that went
pretty
quick.
Yeah, but I wouldn't feel too disheartened, man, because there's majority of players are playing Warhammer 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mainly more experienced players are left playing Warhammer 2, just kind of like diehard fans of it.
Yeah, but
while they wait for other factions, so you're going to get a bit of a mixed bag, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. I don't mind losing as long as I can learn something from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Beastmen are in a good situation as far as balance is concerned right now. They're very powerful.
Yeah.
Your main advantages for Beastmen in general is your infantry is pretty poor, but you've got fantastic cavalry options and monster options.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a lord you favour at the moment?
Yeah, Thorax.
Thorax is the best lord, basically.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic choice. He's an absolute world beater.
Mm-hmm.
As far as taking on a faction like Lizardmen, he can go toe-to-toe with most of the Lizardmen lords. Mm-hmm. You just want to make sure you're fighting on top of your own troops with him, rather than on top of the enemy troops. And this is kind of a rule of thumb for all your large creatures, is they will get dragged down by infantry if they kind of just stand around and take the shots,
Yeah.
And another great thing about Beastmen is Centaurs are insanely good.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how have you found using skirmish cavalry easy so far or kind of hard?
No, I'm pretty okay with cavalry, but I didn't really, when I was trying out stuff myself, I didn't really... Yeah, the Centaurs weren't doing it for me when I was trying stuff out.
Yeah. Good thing about them is... do you know about like cycle charging and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the good thing about Beastmen is they're very powerful at cycle charging.
Mm-hmm.
And their Centaurs hit really fast and relatively hard. So once you end up being more and more comfortable with micro, which if you've come from StarCraft probably won't take too long, you might end up having some pretty big success with them.
Yeah. But that's also a thing. Army composition is still a bit of a learning curve for me as well, because I've just tried different builds against the AI, going through all the factions and kind of looked at what worked best for me there and trying out a multiplayer now. So
yeah, I mean that's the way to do it, honestly. And you'll get more and more used to it. Likewise, stealing other people's builds is a really good idea, particularly early on. I know it sounds bad, but it's people don't get upset about it. It's more of a flattery thing, if anything.
Yeah.
I'll try and see if I can find some builds for you for Beastmen to kind of go over.
Cool.
And I'll kind of send them to you, and you can maybe practice with them during the week and so on.
Yeah, cool.
Cool, man. I'm ready to rumble.
Yeah, let's try this.
Good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh my god, this is the weirdest build I've ever seen.
I
love this. Oh my god, what on earth am I fighting? Okay, no infantry, I like it. Infantry's for the weak, I approve.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Jesus.
Oh man, GG's. No worries. First and foremost, I was being silent for that one just to let you focus a little bit.
Yeah.
Well played, man. That was a hard-fought game for me there. It's some pretty good micro and moving units in and out. Mm-hmm. The only thing to note, so, are you looking to go into, like, tournaments and that kind of stuff? Or are you mainly looking just to play quick battles?
I haven't really decided. I mean...
It's just that, so for tournaments, there's like sets of rules basically to stop unit spamming and like attacking rules and so forth.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't normally be able to bring that many Minotaurs basically to a fight. They're capped, and it's all the majority of the caps are based on gold cost. So for example, Minotaurs were probably capped off the top of my head to like 3 units, I think. So you can only bring like 3 units of Minotaurs. There are variations, so for a unit with great weapons would count as different to dual weapons, but they would overall have like a cap of 5 or something along those lines.
Okay, I thought it was
so
like
it's something to bear in mind.
I thought it was like a cap of 4, but per type. I didn't know they were grouped together like that.
Yeah, so I can find the
Okay.
rules for you if you want them. Basically, they were called fruit rules. They haven't been updated in a while, just because they've kind of moved over to Game Free. So we're waiting for
Yeah,
the
obviously.
update, and then they'll get replenished. So it's just something to note in general.
Okay, cool to know.
That you can't bring like too many of one type of unit, pretty much. But apart from that, I mean, you had some pretty good target priority and so on. What were the main things you found went wrong? Do you think?
Um, yeah, I think you had like some big lizards with a lot of firepower that I didn't think I could take down fast enough. So I went for other units, but they didn't really go down fast either. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
lizardmen are like a big pain in the butt, and they're very resilient. As a faction, they're cold-blooded. They don't really like running away too much.
Yeah.
So the main threat, or the main thing to do basically when you load into a game like this, even before you start advancing, very quickly just take a look at the opponent's build and try to figure out what your win conditions are. So, what do I need to kill first, and in what order, to increase my chances of victory?
Yeah.
And with the Minotaurs, the main threat to my army, despite the fact I've got, a load of big scary dinosaurs, I've got spears, I have halberds, the main threat is probably the solar engines. And you're normally going to see them up against Beastmen because they counter Centaur throwing axes quite nicely, and they're a very common pick.
Okay.
So the reason the solar engines are such a problem for you is they kill models of your Minotaurs quite quickly. And on top of that, they apply something called Blind, which weakens your stats. So if you're fighting Mazdamundi and you get blinded, he's going to be able to fight you a lot more cost effectively.
Yeah.
And then obviously the problem, I guess, which happens a little bit with this game, is kind of the build roulette, where you went all in on large targets, and I have quite a lot of anti-large.
Yeah.
And people often expect Beastmen to bring large units, so you're going to see a lot of large. So what I would recommend doing is probably cutting one or two of the Minotaurs. You can still have a load of them, but then bring something to counter their counters. So in this case, it'd be Temple Guard and Spear units and stuff. You need to bring some infantry to deal with them. And as a rule of thumb in general, in most matchups, I would recommend bringing a spellcaster, even if you're just bringing one spell, because it's a resource that you're kind of giving up if you don't bring a caster, and it kind of gives the advantage to your opponent. Beastmen have access to some really good casters. The I think it's Wild Magic and Beast Magic are really powerful.
Okay, yeah, that's another thing I don't know enough about spells.
Yeah, we can go through some spells now for you
Sure.
and talk through it. So I'll quickly check the Beastmen roster for you. So do you use spells quite a lot in your campaign gameplay so far? Yeah, so you use them quite a bit in general.
But it's always confusing because it says like massive damage or it doesn't really. I have no sense of how much damage each spell does.
Yes. Oh, okay. I can actually probably find you a video which goes through every spell. I know there's a few up on YouTube. I'll try and look for one of those after the training session to send you. But if you're brand new, easiest thing to do is bring a very cheap caster, because if he dies, because casters tend to be a bit squishy, it's not the end of the world. And then just bring one or two spells, and all you have to remember is those two spells. So there's not too much going on. As you get better and better as a player, you can break a lot of kind of basic rules and so on.
Yeah.
But very easy stuff for the Beastmen is I would recommend either going for a Beret Shaman of Death Magic, in which case there's quite a few good spells in this lore, but for a new player in particular, I would 100% just bring Spirit Leech and just constantly pop this on the enemy general, enemy casters, or really high value like cavalry targets and so on.
Okay.
It's not particularly amazing against infantry, but it just does strong damage to a single model. Okay. It's okay to do against cavalry because it'll kill one model and then move to the next one. Against infantry, obviously that's going to be a little less effective. So yeah, I'd recommend bringing a cheap caster. I think a caster with Spirit Leech and no charity or anything, so only about 550 gold. So, it's the same price as one of your like lower end unit prices. and that's just going to be guaranteed value on those Spirit Leeches. You cast like 2 of them, and you've made your value back over the course of a battle. Likewise,
Do you
would
bring any
say...
items with him, or?
So the items for him are a bit dangerous. I wouldn't really worry about the Hag Tree Fetish. It's a miscast chance, basically.
Yeah, with Spirit only
lowers his miscast chance. It's not that useful, really.
Yeah.
The Jagged Dagger is quite nice.
Oh, engaged melee only, right.
Yeah, but it only recharges in melee. And I think you have to remember to pop it. So it's one of those, if you're comfortable with, popping those abilities and items, then you can bring it. It's relatively cheap as well. But if you're, getting overwhelmed by the armies, which I know a lot of new players do, in particular, there's a lot going on in the battle, don't worry, just bring the one spell and you'll get value. So I'd either recommend the Death Caster with Spirit Leech or the Beast Caster. And for him, I would bring the Transformation of Kadon, which is the spell on the far right. It's quite an expensive one, but it will summon a Manticore for you. And you can use this twice a battle. All you do once you summon the Manticore is, much like Spirit Leech, use the Manticore to go after a caster, a general, or a high-value target. And it will often pay for the life of the caster anyway, if you've gone cheap. And you've got 2 casts of that, and that's all you have to worry about. If you've got a bit of leftover money, you can always add on another spell to him, something cheap mana-wise, like Flock of Doom's really good. It's just constant damage. You can kind of spam it as much as possible, and it won't stop you from summoning the big Manticore.
Okay.
With casters in general as well, particularly, again, there's kind of a rule you can break as you get better. I would only bring really like 2 spells maximum. Because you have a limited amount of Winds of Magic, and you're just not going to use them all. There'd be a few situations where maybe you want to cover your bases, so you bring spells just in case a certain unit turns up, but as a rule of thumb to start with, just bring 2 spells, cheap caster, and that way you're basically guaranteed value from him.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely recommend bringing one of them. Against Lizardmen, if we focus on that matchup for now, I like the Manticore pick, but something quite good to do with large units, such as Minotaurs or Croxigors for the Lizardmen, Trolls for the Greenskins, is you don't really want them fighting enemy infantry alone. They just don't have enough models to really, and HP to survive fighting spear units and Temple Guard and stuff.
Okay.
So if you bring a couple of cheap units, say like 3 cheap units of Ungor Spearherds, who are kind of a cheap as chips unit, what you want to happen is them to be slightly ahead of the Minotaurs before the start of the fight, and then when they hit the front line, you saturate the Minotaurs on top of them, and it means the Spearherd will be absorbing a lot of the damage that normally would have been going to the Minotaurs, but the Minotaurs will still be dishing out as much damage as if they were fighting alone.
Okay, that's kind of, I think, like I think that was with Forsaken and Spawn working together. Is that kind of the same principle? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. So, monstrous infantry in general, you either want them as flanking units, kind of like cavalry, or you want them, if you want them in the front line, you have them with infantry, so they work together really well. Because if you go in alone, you're going to you might be able to win the front line, but it won't be very cost effective. And for the most part, you're looking to get as many cost-effective trades as possible, and by the end of the battle, you should be in a really good situation. So we could try this matchup again if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to get a build together then. So I have now Torox,
Yeah, I'll hop over to your side and help design the build.
Okay. Oh, you can do that. Okay, cool.
yeah, I can hop over.
Yeah.
So Torox is great. The main thing you want Torox to be doing, I'll bring the same build I brought with the Lizardmen, so you know roughly what you're going to be up against, and we can try and plan against it. So the main thing Torox wants to be doing is killing those solar engines as quickly as possible.
Okay, yeah.
He will really easily outduel them, and you sent him after Mazdamundi before, which is good, but Mazdamundi's so like horrifically tanky, and he can heal himself. You kind of want to leave him to the end because it's so hard to actually burst him down. You kind of want to surround him and drag him down. I like the Bracing of Death. Spirit Leech is very good. You can use that either on the 2 big Bastiladons, or on Mazdamundi. Either one's fine.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I like the pick of the Ungor Spearherds and the Minotaurs. Just pair them up, I guess. So 1 Minotaur for 1 Spearherd to push on the enemy. Now, what's your thinking behind the Harpies and the Warhounds? What is your main goal with them?
Well, I didn't really find a good target for them in the matchup we just did, but usually I try to get them on top of like archers or gunmen or something.
Yeah.
And I went for the skinks, I think they were.
Yeah.
Something ranged, but...
Yeah, so the main reason you want to use Harpies and Warhounds is to have like Chameleon Skinks and Skink Skirmishers, which are picked relatively often by Lizardmen players.
Yeah.
Lizardmen, quite powerful kite faction. That's almost like a ranged faction, even though you wouldn't think so, but they have so much like close quarters range, which is really powerful. But if you end up in a situation like you did against me where you don't have the best targets, the best thing to do with the Warhounds and the Harpies is actually rear attack the front line.
Oh, for the flanking bonus, right.
Yeah, for the bonus, and you try and break the Saurus, and if you've got Minotaurs who cause fear in the front, it's going to start stacking those debuffs.
Okay. Cool.
And even like the hardened Saurus may fall back and retreat, and once they're running away, you've then got the Warhounds who can hunt down routing units and stop them from coming back into the battle.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I like the build so far. I think it's got a bit of legs. Do you have any more gold left?
Yeah, I have like 2,755 left.
Awesome. I would recommend giving the Centaur Throne Axes a go. Bring in a couple of units of them, maybe like 1 Normal and the Regiment of Renown.
Oh, yeah.
So Skirmish Cav's a little bit tricky to use for newer players because there's a lot of their main counter to them is archers and kind of foot range troops.
Yeah.
Who can harass them with normally longer range and more damage output. But if you come up against my Lizardman build, I only had 2 units in that entire build which could outrange your Throne Axes, and they were the solar engines. So if you can distract them or shut them down with Torx the Brass Bull, then the Throne Axes can come in, and they're really good at taking down Mazdamundi. Because he's such a big target, most of your axes will hit him.
Yeah.
And when in doubt, you can even use your axes against the Temple Guard as well, who are kind of an elite unit. You just want to make sure you're not using the axes against skinks or anything too cheap. You'll have a lot of players try to like push a cheap spear unit towards your skirmish cav, kind of wanting to be shot, so you waste your ammunition. Right. So it is a good idea to take fire at will off on skirmish cav, at least initially. So you only shoot at targets you click on, basically. If you've got a unit of like, I don't know, Lyran Reaver archers have a load of ammo, then I won't worry about it so much. With Throne Axes against Lizardmen, they're your main counter to big dinos. Okay. So you want to save that ammo and use it on the big ones.
And do you put them on skirmish mode, or do you toggle that off?
Yeah, for now I would stay on skirmish mode.
Okay.
It's one of those things, again, when you get just better and better, you might not need to leave them on skirmish mode.
Yeah.
And you can manage them yourself, but I even now leave most of my cavalry on skirmish mode initially, and depending on how the battle's going and what I want them to be doing, then I might switch it off or put it back on.
Yeah.
For some reason it won't let me change teams back now.
I still have 855 left, by the way.
855 left, okay. Let's have a little look what we can fit in here. 855. I would probably chuck in a Feral Manticore or an extra unit of Throne Axes. It's up to you what you would rather bring. The Throne Axes are going to be good against Mazdamundi. The Manticore, you can use them to hunt down the solar engine in the back. So Taurox on one, Manticore on the other one. Or you could 2v1-1 as well if you want to try and drag it down quickly.
Okay.
Both of them are decent options.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for the throwing axes then, purely because otherwise I'll be having too many balls in the air, I think.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to see how this plays out. Are you able to, in the middle of the screen, it should say change teams. Does that button work for you at the moment? It's not letting me switch back to left side.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll just close that one. It shouldn't make a difference because we're just on opposite sides of the map, basically. And it didn't save my Lisbon build. Okay, I'll quickly recreate the same build.
Sure.
As close as I can, we can give it a go and just keep those things in mind, basically. Which campaign have you been enjoying the most so far?
I think Torix one was pretty funny because you could just plow through stuff really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy the Dwarven as much as I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
Though I have to say I didn't really discover that you could like jump over mountains in that certain stance until like turn 20, so that kind of had something to do with that.
Oh god, yeah, you need to. Oh man, that's so rough. Yeah, you need that because it's moving through the mountains is an absolute grind.
I was like, why can't I catch anything?
Everyone just runs away. Yeah.
And then the Dark Elves went pretty well with what's the girl called? Morathi.
Oh yeah, Marathi.
Yeah. At least I got the Black Orc discovered a bit quicker. Yeah.
She's fantastic in multiplayer.
Yeah. And then with my friends we're doing a triple Kislev multiplayer. That's also fun to do with the boys.
There is, if you are looking to play just more and more games, basically, there is a beginners league starting up soon, hosted by a guy called Logic. I can give you a link to his Discord, and it's called the Shortbeards. So I believe the way it works is he'll have some of his admins play a couple of games against you just to make sure you're not like a pro trying to join like the newbie league type thing.
Yeah.
And then you play, I think everyone twice maybe in a league, and there's kind of prizes, and it's done on a lot of the games are done on live stream and stuff on his YouTube channel. But it's a really good place just to get kind of competitive games, but not competitive games against people who are just gonna be stupidly good straight off the bat.
Something like this.
Awesome, man. I'm good to go. So yeah, again, the main thing to remember here, what we'll aim to do, is use Taurox to shut down the solar engines. They're kind of your number one target early on. Try to get the Minotaurs and Ungors fighting at the same time in the front line. That will take a bit of practice to get kind of perfect. And once the solar engines are distracted, trying to get the thrown axes to take down Lord Mazdamundi. And you should be, that should put you in a bit of a decent situation, hopefully.
Okay. Let's try this
again. Good luck, dude.
Thanks.
Also, just remember your caster, just to, whenever possible, every couple of minutes, just hop back and see if he's got his spells back. and then just yeah, keep popping the Spirit Leech on my Lord. Basically, is a good target.
Why is he sticking to Master Mundo and not the Solar Engine? There we go. Okay, what? I have a feeling this is going worse.
Well, GG, man.
Yeah.
I've got a decent amount left, but it's all quite beat up there.
Okay.
You still did a pretty good job. From your initial assessment, what do you think was the main problem?
Well, of course, this is an army I'm trying for the first time, so.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Don't expect to. You'll get there, man. Don't worry about it. It'll take a couple of games with every army to get used to it.
I just thought I clicked Torix on one of the solar engines, but he kept getting stuck on Master Mundi, and I sent the Centaur throwing axes against the solar engine as well, but they were, when I looked back, they were already running away.
Yeah, so basically the main, the frontline fight was going okay initially.
Yeah.
The Minotaurs and Ungors, you're doing a lot of nice damage to the front. Torx was a little bit on his own trying to hunt down in the back. And I was able to kind of jump on him with Lord Mazdamundi. And the reason I was able to do that and do it effectively is the Centaurs couldn't really get into position. So the thing to be careful about with them is they accidentally ran into melee with the Saurus Spears. Trying to get to the Basildon. So what you needed to do was move them all the way around the back of my army.
Right,
and then attack from there. There's nothing like defend in the back. And because they walked into the spears, they accidentally got blobbed up, and I dropped a banishment on them from Mazdamundi, which is a big air of effects, because it's my number one target when I see your army is I have to kill those Centaurs, basically. They're your most precious resource, and I managed to just click on them and they died, basically. So if you had a bit of practice with the Centaurs, I think it might have gone a little bit better.
Okay.
Because they're a lot of your stopping power, pretty much. But apart from that, honestly, you played pretty good with you managed to get the Ungors on the front with the Minotaurs, which is really promising. I would just try to split up the Harpies, I guess, and just have them rear attack different units. Otherwise, they blobbing up when you see Mazdamundi is really risky, because he has Ruination of Cities and Bound Banishment, which are both big air of effect damage dealing spells.
Okay.
So if you blob up, it's just a matter of, the Lizardman player just clicking and then deleting all those units in one go. You can get away with a bit more in the late game, but it can be tough at the start. But for the first time using the army, man, that was still a pretty good showing. Okay. You certainly battered my front line quite badly.
Okay, because in my how I felt it was going way worse actually than the first one, but
I think the first one, you got a lot closer.
Yeah.
But I don't think you'd be able to actually take that army legally in a tournament scenario.
Right, of course, yeah. That's also
because Minotaurs are very good, but you can't bring
That's why they did better, of course, because it's not allowed. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But you still played good in the first game as well. It was a very close game, and you certainly hurt my troops a lot. Yeah, this is a relatively tough matchup actually as well, so I can switch off Lizardmen now.
Okay.
And I can give a different faction a go. Was there a faction in particular you wanted to try against?
No, I have like 0 experience against pretty much everything, so anything I can learn is good.
Okay, we'll try a similar idea then. I'll go Dwarfs. We'll stay on the same map and everything. Cool. And you've kind of got the same idea here of how you attempted to take down the Lizardmen. Is that my main threat to you when we load into the battle will be my range units, most likely.
Yeah.
So, Thunderers, Quarrelers, Cannons, all of that type of nasty business is going to be your main priority. And Taurox is quite good at pushing into the back line and shutting down those troops.
Yeah.
The stuff you're going to have to be mainly, I guess, aware of is miners with blasting charges can kill your infantry very quickly.
Ah, right, yes.
And Slayers are very, very scary to basically everything. So if you can get cheap units on the Slayers, you're golden.
Okay.
So I'll chuck a build together quickly, then I'll hop over to your side and check your build, and we can maybe make 1 or 2 tweaks before we try this matchup out.
Yeah. What to do?
I've chucked together a little build, so I'll leave that as it is, and I'll hop over to your side and just see. I'll quickly save this in case it deletes it again. Dowie training build. There we go. Cool. So what's your main... have you had any experience facing the dwarfs before?
Yeah, just 1 match.
How did it go?
I barely got defeated. That was more close. Obviously, that was with a lot of Minotaurs as well. I thought that the biggest issue was all of that ranged. So I'm thinking about more shielded guys, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, shielded guys are going to be pretty good here. I like the pick of the double harpies. It's almost essential you bring at least 2 harpies in this matchup, in case your opponent goes for a gyrocopter build. Harpies are very good at killing gyrocopters. You're very fast, and if you touch them, you actually have a decent amount of armor piercing, I believe, or you like a little bit of armor piercing to help break through them. I wouldn't worry necessarily as much about the thrown axes in this one. So the reason we wanted the thrown axes against lizardmen is to take down the big dinosaurs.
Yeah, the big armored dinosaurs.
Yeah, dwarfs don't unfortunately have any large monsters of any kind.
Yeah, but they do have a lot of armor, so that was why I was thinking
you
maybe
can definitely.
not.
Yeah, you can definitely still use them, and they can be very good in this matchup. I just recommend for a newer player probably less so, because keeping them alive against dwarfs can be quite tough.
Yeah, because they have the range advantage probably.
Yeah, to help out Taurox, because when he got in the back line against the lizardmen, he was about outnumbered on his own. I would recommend putting the Brave Shaman on a chariot. And then he can also work in a similar way to Taurox, where they just both push into the back line.
Okay.
And because the dwarfs in this game, this won't actually be the case in Warhammer 3, I don't believe, but dwarfs all have magic resistance in this. I think that's changing to spell resistance. The Spirit Leech caster probably is not going to be as effective.
Okay.
It can still be good at taking down artillery pieces, but I would switch out the Death caster for the we spoke about before, the Manticore summon.
Yeah.
And then when you summon the Manticores, you can definitely summon one early in the battle, because you've got to wait for the cooldown for the second one. Just send it after either artillery pieces or an enemy general, and they'll do absolutely fine, and they'll put the dwarf player under a considerable amount of pressure. So I'm liking the build so far. Minotaurs combined with the Ungors should do decent in the front line. Chaos Warhounds are quite nice to move in the back. It may well be worth bringing 1 or 2 Bestigor units, because they should be able to go toe-to-toe with the majority of Dwarven infantry.
Okay.
Yeah, just because they've got the armor piercing. And how much gold do you currently have left?
15.
15 gold or 1500?
15.
Oh, 15. Oh, okay, well, we can go with this build.
Yeah.
And give it a go. It's a relatively simple build, so how would I best play this? I think if you have the Minotaurs saturated on the Ungors in the front line again, like you did last time, I would put the Bestigors on the wings and almost use them like cavalry. So try to hit the rear of the dwarf formation. Dwarfs are almost always a defensive faction.
Yeah.
And will have either a box build or an onion build. And they normally have their best units at the front, because that's where most of the damage is going to be coming from. So if you tie them up with your Ungors and your Minotaurs, the Bestigors on the flank should be able to get into some softer dwarf units and start really opening up the defensive formation. And then they can get into the back line, basically. And definitely feel free to use Taurox and the Brave Shaman to shut down any backline troops as well.
Okay.
If you're able to change teams again, that'd be great for some reason. Don't let me. I don't know what it is. It really doesn't want me to leave you. Cool. When we start the battle, the first thing we do is just pause it, and we can take a look at my build and formation, then figure out a plan of attack for you.
Okay, cool.
What made you want to try out multiplayer, by the way?
I don't know, it's just the competitive nature, because, in PvE it's all fun, you can do some silly stuff, but at a certain point you don't get better from single player, because, it's the AI, it's easy to beat.
Yeah.
And
yeah, once you've figured out how to beat the AI, I think it becomes a lot easier.
So just trying to constantly get better and try out stuff.
How long did you play StarCraft for?
I think about 3 months after launch, I think.
Oh, very nice. You still play it now?
No, not so much. It's once I found Warhammer, it's like I like StarCraft, but it's so macro focused that you don't really get to play the battle aspect of it much, I feel, and that's why I like Warhammer more, because it's like it's constantly battling, and you have the sort of progression stuff in the campaign with the building up of stuff. But actually focusing on the battle, that's what I like.
Nice. Cool, man. So I'm ready to rumble. When we press start, if you just press the pause button at the top right hand side.
Sure.
And we'll quickly go for a plan of attack. Cool. There we go. So if you have a little look at my army now,
of course,
what do you think is the main threats in this army to your current army?
Should have figured you would go on top of one of the hills.
Yeah, I will push forward, because in tournaments you always have to be attacking.
Right. Yeah.
So if I had a cannon, I could sit on the hill, but I do not, so I'll have to push forward a little bit.
Well, the Slayers are probably good against the Minotaurs.
Yep.
Not sure about the best. What was the bonus damage again? Versus large, yeah. The best scores aren't large, right?
Oh no, Bestigors don't count as large.
Okay, so they're good
it's actually quite a good fight. If you can get Bestigors up against the Slayers, you're doing really well, because you have a decent amount of armor.
Yeah.
They'll still kill a lot of you, but it'd be a good fight. So, Slayers are a very good pickup there. I have 3 units of them, and your main damage dealers are Minotaurs and Taurochs, and they're all large targets. So I can hunt them down. The second biggest threat is the Trollhammer torpedoes.
Oh, right. I was going to ask because I don't really know that unit.
Oh, okay. So basically, they are missile launchers, quite close range, and they have a big bonus versus large as well. So they're going to be really good against Taurochs and against the Minotaurs.
Yeah.
So much like the solar engines, they're probably one of your biggest targets, and the Slayers are going to be the problem that's in your way of really getting into them, and their main job's to protect them. The infantry for me, I have some Dwarf Warriors. They're nothing that scary, really, for you. Minotaurs should crump them relatively effectively. Yeah. There are miners with blasting charges, and they won't do much damage to your Minotaurs or your characters. But if they're able to shoot the cheap Ungors before they get engaged in combat, they'll do a load of damage. That's quite scary. But apart from that, the infantry is not going to be your main concern. Bestigors and Minotaurs should be able to beat them. So you really want to focus down at the Iron Drakes and the Slayers. And funnily enough, Harpies don't count as large. So dropping the Harpies on the Slayers is a viable tactic to bog them down. And Harpies are pretty big damage dealers, so they'll lose to the Slayers, but they'll probably trade relatively cost effectively. And they'll hopefully buy time for the Minotaurs to push in the front line.
Okay.
So the main thing you want to do is my army will advance towards you a little bit. You'll have to obviously rotate your force.
Yeah.
Try and get the Bestigors going a little ahead of your army with the Hounds and get them down the flanks. And try to get them to shut down the Slayers or move in and flank my units as your Ungors and Minotaurs fight the front line. And unlike last time, where you wanted the Ungors to engage first and then the Minotaurs, you probably want the Minotaurs, just to take those blasting charges. They'll take a bit of damage, but nothing too scary. And then to help out in the battle, I would use the Harpies to shut down the Slayers. Or if you can't get on those Iron Drakes of Taurochs or anyone, you can always move them to shut them down. But Harpies take a long time to kill Iron Drakes because Iron Drakes have a disgusting 140 armor.
Jeez.
I think it's 120, but it's being buffed by 4 Iron Brown in the middle.
Okay.
Which is a little bit scary. So that would be the main plan of attack. Do you know how to rotate your whole army in one go?
Yeah, Alt and Control now.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Cool. Is there any questions or anything of my build you want to ask about?
No, except for those missiles launchers, I think I know the units okay from the campaign.
Yeah, the missiles only have 90 range, so from where my unit is, it just over the heads of the front line is where they can shoot. So you don't have to worry about them, on approach, but they will do big damage to Minotaurs and Taurochs, so they're definitely they're the big target you want to shut down, but the main threat's probably the Slayers.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. You ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
Awesome, let's do this, man. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. Oh crap, Panthers are moving. Crap.
That's all good, man. So yeah, the flank on the right's really good. The Bestigors going around the side's fantastic. Almost nothing on that side can shut them down. And then now you've dropped the Harpies in, you want to engage as quickly with the rest of your forces as possible.
Yeah, the whole attacking together thing is gonna take some getting used to.
Yeah, the attacking together thing's huge. So I'll say after, I suppose, I can do some feedback. Yeah. But the Harpies committed a little bit early.
Yeah.
So you want them to fight as the Bestigors are coming in. If they fight together, they do some good work.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly against dwarfs, you don't want to send in like one unit then the next unit type thing. You need to be moving as one. But you're still doing some good work. Definitely still in the game.
Oh, why didn't that go off? Crap.
Yeah, so the Manticore summon, that's good that you've got that in. Normally, so I'd recommend you get one in a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But the fact you've remembered it now is still very good. It's pretty huge. And then, yeah, perfect targets. Just send it off to the Iron Drakes or the General, either one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, GG's. I don't have much of an army left, to be honest, after that, so you did a good job. Interesting enough, the same thing, or my main feedback here, is you had all the right ideas, pretty much. It was just the timing of the ideas.
Yeah.
And executing them together. You got the best scores around one flank really nicely with Hounds, and there was Harpy support.
Yeah.
The other side was a little bit slower on the flank, but that was okay because you had to rotate your whole army. But it's knowing when to attack, I suppose. Yeah. So once your Minotaurs hit the front line, I have a difficult choice to make on should my Slayers go forward and help the front line, or do I abandon the front line? And at that moment is when your Hounds, Harpies, and Bestigors should be attacking from the sides. Because then the Slayers have to defend the flanks, they can't then help the front line, and then the Minotaurs end up winning the front line fight, basically.
Okay, so I should have done the infantry push first and then the
flank, yeah. Or if ideally at the exact same time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But obviously that's really much easier said than done.
Yeah.
But the other guy I'm teaching as well, who's relatively new, has the exact same problem, and it's a huge thing for new players in general, is just timing and attacking as one with your whole army, rather than the front line hits, then the right flank hits, then the left hand hits. Particularly against dwarfs who are so defensive, and they love it if they can pick apart little bits of armies at a go.
Of course, yes.
Because you applied a lot of good pressure to the front, I had to pull back with the Iron Drakes, but because the flanks weren't ready to attack, they could then restabilize, turn around, and start shooting the Minotaurs.
Cool.
And they were really MVPs. They killed the majority of stuff.
Yeah.
And the only other feedback, I suppose, would be getting one of those Manticore summons off really early. So as the front line started, there should be a Manticore applying pressure with the rest of the army and shutting down the Iron Drakes. Even if it doesn't kill one of the Iron Drakes, as long as it distracts them. Yeah, as long as I'm not shooting, you're golden there, and the Minotaurs can win. But because the Iron Drakes were able to fire kind of unimpeded, the Minotaur kind of front line crumbled, unfortunately, a little bit.
Yeah, the problem with the cast was I sent him in early, and then he got routed before I could get the summon off.
Yes.
And then I had to wait again until he got back, and the range was shorter than I thought it was, so,
Yeah. No, man, it's all a good learning experience, though, so... It's a good idea, just, particularly for new players, always say Manticores, get one off early, and then if you remember the second Manticore, that's great, and if you've got time to use him later on. But as long as you get one, if it's one of your only spells, you're going to pay for yourself most likely with that one cast anyway.
Yeah, a question about that actually. Is it better to just because I was trying to summon it right on top of it, but probably better to summon it a bit further and then have it fly in, right?
Yeah, you're relatively fast. Obviously, summon it on top of me is great if you're in your
if I can pull it off.
Chariot had managed to like push into my back line a little bit. He kind of got stuck on the front line.
Yeah.
So Torx and Chariot probably should have ignored the front line really, and kind of pushed through into the secondary line a little bit.
Right.
As long as the Slayers were getting bogged down with your hounds and stuff around the flanks. But yeah, if it's not worth going into the range of like the Trollhammer torpedoes to cast it, just cast it further away safely, and then fly the Manticore over and in really.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, because what I've been doing before was, basically a Minotaur spam, and I was very, literally straightforward.
Yes.
And of course that's fun to play, but it also has, I think, a relatively low skill ceiling, and I can see these armies working better in multiple situations once I get used to them, that is.
yeah, don't worry, man. It's going to take a while, and I've been playing the game for a very long time, so...
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to win against you. So.
Yeah, no, like, honestly, you have... For someone who's not played much multiplayer, it's actually very impressive.
Thanks.
There's a few people I trained, I think about like a year ago maybe, or 6 months ago, and they knew far less and were far worse with your micro. Your micromanagement's actually really good.
Okay.
Particularly for a newer player, you don't seem to forget about that many units. It's going to be... What we can work on, I think in particular, is going to be timing.
Yeah.
And once you get timing down, I think you could end up being a pretty scary player, particularly once we start sorting out some builds.
Yeah, indeed, builds and timings. And the timings, I can think, I can just practice against the AI.
Yeah, you can practice against AI. I mean, it's always better to practice against human opposition.
Yeah.
Just because AI is... it's easy to fall into some bad habits against AI. I'll have a word with... there's a lovely dude called Frederick, who I'm teaching now. I'll have a word with him and see if he's happy to maybe do some joint lessons with you. Oh, cool. Just so you guys can play against each other, and then I can help as you guys play.
Sure.
You did send me a list of dates when you were free. I'll send them to him and see if he can manage to do any of the days.
Okay.
Are you mainly free about this time in the evenings, or is there any earlier days you can do?
Well, the difficulty is I have a son and he goes to bed around this time, so...
yeah.
So any other times I'll have to check with my partner if she's then available, but she also works evenings, so...
Yeah, okay, no worries, man. I'll send a message to the other guy and see what kind of days he can do a bit later. And at the moment, I'm training him every Monday at 3 p.m, which I believe is 4 p.m. for you.
Yeah, that's a different time.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's a bit too early if you haven't got work or if you're looking after your boy. So I'll ask him what days he can do a bit later, and I'll get back to you on what ones he says he can do, and we can hopefully do another training session if you want to.
Yeah.
Perfect,
awesome.
Man. Cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed, man. It's a rough start to life on Total War. It really is like a real steep learning curve.
Yeah.
But you have bucket tons of potential, man.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Awesome, man. Cool. Well, I'll get back to you then, hopefully later today, just whenever he messages me back on dates and see if you can make them.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Nice to meet you, dude. I'll catch you later.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Yeah, man.
See ya.